Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy. What do you got for us today, Claire?
So today I'm going to give the US a break and we're going to delve into Germany in the 70s.
All right. It sounds like a good year.
So I feel like since I give you tidbits about random United States that we go to, your fun facts about Germany would be there are over 20,000 castles and the majority of them are over a century old.
That's pretty cool.
I know. I thought that was pretty cool. Now, most of them have been converted into museums, hotels, or cultural centers. They're not homes anymore, but I thought that was
I want a castle.
an interesting snippet. I don't want to clean one, so no thank you.
Wait. If I can afford a castle, then I can sure as hell afford a staff to clean it. If I have a castle, I'm not the one cleaning it.
Okay, well, we're not going to any castles in today's episode.
What?
But your other fun fact, the area of Germany we're going to go into is Bavaria. Now, an interesting fact about that region,
They made the donuts.
beer is considered one of the food groups.
Don't tell Jason that.
I was like, interesting. And then also, I figure since we like to reference movies in nearly every episode, that I'd pick a movie to reference. So have you ever seen The Exorcism of Emily Rose?
I have not, actually.
Me neither. I don't really like exorcist movies, so
No, I don't either.
they seem stupid, and they're all generally the same holy water flung, priests yelled at, people making weird rah, rah, noises.
I honestly believe, because you don't really hear about exorcisms nowadays, I think those people were like bipolar or schizophrenic or had some sort of mental illness, and they thought by spraying them with some water, and they've really just tortured these people to death most of the time. I don't like.
Pretty
I don't
much.
enjoy watching movies about it.
Well, so the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose, some people might not realize that it was based on actual experiences of a young German gal named Anneliese Michel. Now, mind you, it's loosely based because Hollywood likes to make things more dramatic and crazy than they actually are. And obviously, if we're talking about Annelise, it's not The Exorcism of Emily Rose. But so if you have seen the movie, then you know where we're headed. And if you haven't, then you're going to need to strap in for some crazy shit.
Better than strap on.
You have some weird side hobbies. We're not getting into that today either. Keep that to yourself because I don't want to know. So Annelise was born in 1952 and grew up Catholic in Bavaria, which is West Germany. She was raised in a deeply religious family with 3 sisters and her parents who attended Mass twice a week. Annelise was a good girl. When she turned 16, she started experiencing like where she would just black out. It just happened the one time, but it was at school, and she started also having dizzy spells.
Was she diabetic?
So it was just weird. No. But when she experiences severe convulsions, I don't know if I need to explain that, but uncontrollable body shakes if I do. So it was just weird. That happens when she's 16. Now, also, if she had any of these episodes, she wouldn't have memory of the events. So it was like weird moments where when she would black out, her friends and family would say it was like she was in a trance, but she would have no memory of when those happened.
So she was having seizures.
Right. So roughly a year goes by, she has a second one of these episodes, and that's when her mom's just like, we're going to go to a neurologist. Now, that doctor diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy. Now, that's a disorder that causes seizures, loss of memory, as well as visual and auditory hallucinations, which to me, I was like, for in the 60s, 70s, I feel like that was spot on of a diagnosis for what she's got going on.
Yeah, good job on the doctor.
Yeah, they called it real good, but I guess it is a brain hole doctor, so they should know what they're doing. So she starts a number of psychiatric treatments for her new diagnosis. Now, neat little side fact on temporal lobe epilepsy, it can also cause another syndrome, Gershwin syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it causes the hyper-religious disorder.
What?
Yeah, I didn't know that, but it makes sense that if your brain's getting a whole lot of wires shooting around that it would cause other things. I just thought that was a neat little fun fact. Now, not surprising, even today, that if you're suffering from seizures or really just any issues, there's a ton of medicines to help.
Is that all you're going to say about the hyper-religious diagnosis?
Disorder?
Yeah.
No, she didn't get a diagnosis. I'm just saying with that form of epilepsy, you can also have Gershwin syndrome as like a throw off.
So what does that mean? Like, what does that do?
They're hyper religious, super like hyper religious. What
I don't know
what
how
other
that's a
words do you need to
brain.
help that?
It's not clicking for me as how that becomes a brain disorder all of a sudden from a seizure.
It's not a brain disorder. It's a syndrome. Just like you can become obsessive or like you can be obsessive compulsive, that's a neurological thing.
I feel like that was awfully pointed. Pick a different disorder.
I didn't say you as in you, but it just they fixate on something. So hyper religious disorders, that's called Gershwin syndrome.
Hey, you need to sit still. I can hear all your wiggling.
Well, my wiggling is because you're getting attached to things that aren't important.
Ma'am, if I told you that somebody could get hyper-religious syndrome and just try to leave it there, you'd be like, wait, what does that even entail?
Being super religious.
I feel like the people that are out there that don't have a syndrome that are super religious should be wildly offended right now.
Maybe they got a touch of the epilepsy. You don't know.
All right. Sure.
I'm just saying, now back to what I was telling you. So they're going to start her on some meds. But I was also telling you with really any diagnosis, there's a bunch of different medications because some work for some people, others don't. So you've got options. Unfortunately, with epilepsy, there are going to be some things that don't work for you. And the only way to figure that out is to start somewhere. So they start her on some regimen of medications and treatments. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to help, and her condition would continue to worsen over a number of years. Now, naturally, you're not going to enjoy having blackouts, feeling dizzy, all the things, and it's got to be depressing trying all these treatments. Things aren't working. The episodes are only increasing or getting worse, and she starts to get depressed. Since there's no improvement, it's got to suck to be going through that. People have got to start thinking you're weird, and you figure by this point she's like the 17, 18.
Yeah, she just wants to fit in.
Yeah, now by 1970, this is roughly 2 years after her initial diagnosis, she'll have her third major seizure while being treated in a psychiatric hospital. I believe it was for depression. They don't really say why she was there, but I feel like if she's going in and out of these depressive states and they're not sure what all is going on with her, she's there when she has a seizure.
I wonder if her depression could have been induced by some of the medications she was on.
Absolutely.
Because you know how some of the medications, they say suicidal thoughts and depression and all that? That's kind of sad.
Right. So she has her third seizure while being treated in that psychiatric hospital, I believe, for depression. Now, this is when they would prescribe anticonvulsion drugs for the first time.
What?
Because I think prior to that, she hadn't had a seizure, so she was on just other psychiatric medications. Because really, if you're not having seizures, but I thought it was weird because
she was diagnosed as epilepsy. She should have been on.
They diagnosed her with epilepsy.
Yeah.
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
They prescribe her those anticonvulsion drugs for the first time, and they don't seem to help. Now, she would begin saying she saw the face of the devil wherever she went during the first month of those meds. Now, generally, medication, when you start it, it's not going to be you take it and all your problems go away. So I think it was one of those, it was during the first month, and it's just like maybe they're waiting for it to settle into her system, see if it works. But during that first month, that's when she starts saying she's seeing the face of the devil, which again, that's why I was telling you with that temporal lobe epilepsy, you can also have hallucinations. So now we're really going the wrong direction with all of this, and plus her treatment. So they would tack on some more drugs that were used to treat other like psychoses, including schizophrenia and delusions. Now, again, nothing's helping. She's continuing to decline. She would keep having the episodes over the next year and even would wake up in her trance state and pee in her bed.
I feel like that's losing control as she's having a seizure, though, because people don't understand that you can have a seizure where you're not flopping around. Have you ever seen somebody have
Right.
a seizure in your eye?
Where just
Yeah, they like tense up. But if you look at their eyeballs, sometimes you can see their eyeballs shake.
Yeah, or dilate and do all sorts of weird shit.
Yeah.
Because your brain is doing some weird things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, still trying to continue her life as normal, she'd enroll in a university in 1973. Now, this is 5 years into her ineffective medical treatments. The meds she was being prescribed weren't helping. Still, her classmates would say she was withdrawn and very religious. Now, I feel like it's normal for somebody who's going through a whole lot of shit and they're dealing with a lot. I feel like there's probably also, with her being described as very religious, the people who are like treating her like a leper anyway.
Yeah.
So her and her family would believe she was possessed when she begins being intolerant to Christian relics and symbols like the crucifix and starts growling at crosses.
All right.
She also claimed she heard whispers in her ear telling her that she was damned and would rot in hell while she prayed, which made Annelise believe she was indeed possessed by the devil.
And secretly, it was like her little brother whispering through a vent.
So she had sisters.
Okay, then it was her sister secretly whispering through a vent. Remember how we used to talk through the vents in the house?
Yeah.
Didn't realize that Mom and Dad could hear us downstairs.
Turns out we weren't as sneaky as we thought. So her medical care obviously isn't helping. Annelise continues to be super depressed and trying all the things the last 5 years. If now she thinks she's got her own diagnosis of she's possessed, that's why nothing's working. Naturally, an exorcism is going to be what's needed to fix her and rid her of her problems. Now, just a little side piece on exorcisms.
Side piece?
Fuck you, Andrea. A side note, whatever. They've existed. Okay, chuckles. They've existed in practice for millennia and really caught on in the Catholic Church in the 1500s, where priests would use the Latin phrase "Vad retro Satana," which means "go back, Satan," in order to rid you of your demons.
Did they use their penis for it?
I don't know. It's possible. I wasn't there.
I don't know. You said it was a side piece.
I don't know what they were using as their wand to flick the holy water. They could have been dipping it
I'm telling you, that wasn't water.
But mind you, we're in the 70s, not the 1500s at this point. So that's all fine and dandy that in the 1500 exorcisms were a common practice. But by the 60s and 70s, they were pretty rare among the Catholics. So Annelise and her family went on the prowl for one of them priests that could rid her of her possession. Not her possessions, but her... They're not going to rob her blind. They're going to perform an exorcism.
She went to go find her side piece to take all her possessions. All right, got it.
But everyone they went to would tell them, yeah, you need to go back to your doctor for your problems, and they're not going to help her. And by the way, we can't do it anyway because that permission is only granted by a bishop. By this point, Annelise is, again, only deteriorating because I feel like... So when you have a seizure, your brain temperature goes up real high. So I feel like every time she has an episode, we're only cooking her brain even more. So the longer she goes with ineffective treatment, of course she's going to deteriorate because her brain is getting more well done.
Right.
So 5 years in, it's not surprising that her delusions are getting worse. Her depression is getting worse. They're tacking on more things.
Also, the combination of different medications could have some additional side effects.
Right.
Not saying the 70s weren't getting there with their medical, but there's things that we've learned since then that certain medications can cause certain things. So, poor girl.
So by the time we're 5 years in, you figure she's her early 20s. She just wants to be normal, live a normal life, all the things. And if now she's thinking she is possessed, they need this exorcism, her mom is on the prowl for a priest, Annelise has deteriorated so much that her delusions are so extreme, she would like rip her clothes from her body, do compulsively 400 squats a day, which to me, I took a pause and was like, she has got to have some butt cheeks of steel or something.
Her thighs like and butt cheeks, like, holy moly, that's a lot.
400? I don't know how she was walking. But she also started crawling under tables, would bark like a dog for 2 days. She started eating spiders and coal. She would injure herself. She bit off the head of a dead bird, licked her own urine off the floor.
Are we sure she wasn't schizophrenic?
Well, no. Now, mind you, she started doing all this while taking all of her medications. So I kind of don't blame her family for being like, yeah, so this isn't working. We need another option. And for them to think, okay, well, maybe she's possessed. She says she sees the devil's face. She hears whispers. So I feel like when you have an adult child in your house that's doing all that, I can see where they're looking towards other options.
Not me.
But I did put in a pause for you if you need to take in her licking her own urine off the floor and biting off the head of a bit dead bird.
Yeah, that's pretty disturbing because, like,
Imagine if you walked in and one of your children would peed on the floor and was licking it up, and then there's a dead bird corpse next. Actually, you have birds, so it's possible
you know
it'd
what
be
though?
your bird.
I wouldn't question it because those parrots are annoying. The way they
So
squawk.
you wouldn't question them, but
I'd be like,
I'm worried.
you know what? If I told you one of my kids killed the parrot, you'd be like, good. You're trying to get my dog to go murder the parrots, ma'am.
That's because they're annoying as hell to listen to in the background because my Bluetooth seems to think it's your voice screeching, and it's like they're talking to me, and I go deaf in whichever ear my earbud's in. But anyway, the fact that you wouldn't question them biting the head off of said dead bird is the part that I found concerning.
I didn't say I'd approve it.
So also during this, I feel like every time she's going back to the doctor when she's getting worse, they're messing with her meds. So she's starting new meds for her seizures, a mood stabilizer, in addition to some of her other antipsychotic drugs.
Hey, where'd she get the birds from?
I don't know, probably outside. And it was
That's
just the one
impressive.
bird that I know of. It was probably already dead. She didn't kill a bird and bite off its head. It's just like she's nibbling roadkill.
That's even more disgusting.
Right. So I feel like every time she has one of these bouts of weirdness, she's back to the doctor. They change up her meds again, which is also, again, it's real hard, even nowadays, to get meds right.
Right.
Because it takes so long for them to get into your system to know, is it helping? Is it not helping? And if you're dealing with a number of different medications, you brought up a valid point of you can have interactions between those. And it's also the time period that we're in. They don't really know about a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
So,
And the more symptoms she's having, if they're just tacking on more medications, no wonder she's losing her freaking mind. Because there are people with epilepsy that have seizures and don't go this route. So I'm going to say either she's got like epilepsy and schizophrenia, or there's a very real chance that her medications are causing her to lose her freaking mind. And I'm also a little bit curious, did they try shock therapy on her?
not that I know of.
Because that could also be helping fry those.
But I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to rewire her, because I know that in the United States, that was a practice of, they thought like a car, they had to jumpstart you. But I feel like it's a possibility. But they tacked on the mood stabilizer because when she would start having her weird episodes, she started becoming violent, and that's when she was causing injury to herself. So it's just like she's really going an awful direction.
Yeah.
But then Eureka, in September of 75, Annelise's mom finds a priest, Ernst Alt, who not only believed that she was indeed possessed, but claimed she didn't look epileptic to him.
Interesting.
But I thought it was interesting because according to a priest, she didn't look epileptic, to which I was like, you're not a neurologist. And what exactly does an epileptic look like?
He was expecting to see her flopping around on the ground like a fish out of water.
But so naturally, if you have somebody who's like, oh yeah, you know what, she probably is possessed, we need to fix this. So he's like, but you know what? We still need permission from the bishop. So he's not going to mention to the bishop that she has a history of epilepsy when he goes to ask for that permission to do an exorcism on poor Annelise. Naturally, the bishop is going to be like, sure, go ahead. Proceed with that there exorcism. So he'll go back to Annelise's mom and be like, woo, we can get started. However, we have to do it under total secrecy because they don't like to advertise when there's an exorcism.
Why? You'd think they'd be screaming it from the rooftops of, we cured somebody. Unless they
I think
expect it to fail and they don't want to be tied up with that.
so. I feel like there's secrecy also because the whole if you spread the fear, then the devil will have more places to jump into. I don't know. I don't perform exorcisms, lady. I'm just telling you, they got an approval. Now, after that approval, over the next 10 months, Arnold Rentz and Ernst Alt would perform 67 exorcisms. Some would last up to 4 hours. She'd typically have 1 to 2 exorcisms a week.
I have no basis
What
for.
the hell is hi? I was ready for hi.
I don't know anything about exorcisms other than the movies, and I thought it was like a one and done kind of thing.
I appreciate that you said that because I did not realize that people underwent several exorcisms, and
Let alone upper double digits.
so I got the vibe that it would take a while. So 4 hours wasn't shocking to me, but once to twice a week and 67 exorcisms. I mean, I guess way to go to these fellers for not having any quit in them. But I was like, that. At what point do you throw in the towel? Now, her first exorcism was September 24th, 1975. Now, with her new treatment, her parents would decide to stop going to her neurologist, believing that the exorcism would be the cure. Now, Annelise was believed to be possessed by 6 demons.
Holy shit!
Lucifer, Adolf Hitler, Nero, Fleischmann, who was a disgraced priest, and Judas and Cain.
Wow.
Were all of her demons.
She's an evil little shit.
These fellers came to the conclusion that all of these demons were mixed up inside of her and fighting for power. So that was part of the reason she was suffering so much, is because that's a lot of demons to be inside you to be wrestling. So,
and their way of wrestling was to lick her pee.
I guess they were thirsty. Now, her communication would also, during some periods, become a low growl on occasion, or like when she was growling at the cross or whatever she was doing. And that's when they were saying those were the demons fighting for power.
Right. All right.
During some of these arguments, her demons would argue with each other. Hitler would say, people are stupid pigs. They think it's all over after death, but it goes on. And Judas would say that Hitler was nothing but a big mouth who had no real say.
So, is it possible she had multiple personalities?
I feel like yes.
Or was she just saying shit, schizophrenic type, just losing her mind, having a terrible episode, and the priests are naming each of the different things that she's saying as having a different demon?
Well, so my understanding is there's also the different voices, so she's a real sick gal.
Poor baby.
Now, during her exorcism, she would talk about dying to atone for the wayward youth of the day and the apostate priest of the modern church.
What the hell's an apostate priest?
I don't know.
Sounds like prostate.
Probably what they're using. I'm gonna Google it. Oh, okay. So an apostate priest is somebody who seems to be a Christian and who's part of the church ends up leaving the church.
Oh.
So all them priests that left. She's atoning for everyone's sins. And
what are you doing?
I had to set my phone back down, all right? Now, did I mention she broke bones and ripped tendons in her knees from continually kneeling to pray?
How the hell do you break your knees and bones praying?
I felt like it was less of the kneeling to pray and more of the 400 squats, but that's not what they say she
what bones did she
but...
break?
So her knees were broken. So she'll need to be like helped with any walking because she's real hurt.
How is she walking with broken knees?
She's not. She's really just holding herself up with the assistance of other people.
Sounds painful.
I would imagine it sure was. Now, also, all these exorcisms are recorded, so you can listen to them if you want to.
I'm good.
Now, just disclosure, it's all in German, so there's that. I did laugh when I read a comment because someone listened to them and thought she was possessed because she was speaking in tongues, then realized that she was speaking German. And I laughed way too hard when I read that. But I love that they at least made a comment because I too, for a second, I wouldn't. I think if I would have just clicked and listened, what's the point of me listening? I don't speak German. I'm not going to know what the hell she's saying. So, other than you're going to hear some different voices and her doing whatever she's doing, but I don't know what she's saying. So, there's really no point in me listening. And then you'd have other people to be like, yeah, I didn't speak German either, but I listened to that shit and it was the most disturbing thing I'd ever listened to. So avoid it if you'd like to get a good night's sleep. So have at it. It's easy to find, evidently. I had no interest because, again, I don't speak German, so I find it hard to believe talking scary would bother me.
No, I'm going to have to listen to it.
Whatever. Have at it.
Plan to.
So, like I told you, Annelise is enduring those 67 exorcisms over the course of 10 months. Now, during some of those sessions, she'd be restrained, so the priest would conduct their little exorcism rites. Her mother would even assist in her being restrained. So, it doesn't seem like a real fun process, but if you've got some sort of knowledge on exorcisms, it doesn't seem like a fun process to begin with, so being restrained wasn't surprising to me either. I just didn't know it would be over like several hours and several exorcisms. So by the end of those 10 months, she would begin eating less and less until she would die of malnutrition and dehydration.
She was eating less and less because they were starving her because they had her tied up.
She would die July 1st, 1976. She was just 23 years old. She'd weigh in at 68 pounds.
Oh my God.
She had 2 broken knees and a case of pneumonia on top of all that malnutrition and dehydration.
It's from all the water. Sorry. I know that's not funny and it's really sad, and it is very sad that she went through all that.
Right. She was basically tortured to death.
She was waterboarded into pneumonia.
Dude, I feel like her whole life from 16 onward, that was a long, painful way to fizzle out because her suffering started way before her exorcisms. And I feel like I'm real sad for her because it was so desperate for help, they'd try anything.
It's so sad.
But anyway, so after her death, her story would become a sensation. And not just in Germany. The United States would hear about it, and everybody was just like, holy shit.
It seems far-fetched that you're going to torture someone to death because they have a mental illness, or possibly are super over-medicated and having some severe reactions.
Right. Now, it's especially crazy because when you hear that 2 priests and her parents are charged with negligent homicide.
Good.
Now, their trial would start March 30th, 1978, and basically become a case of religion versus science. So you would have Annelise's doctors say that she wasn't possessed. This was a very sick lady with a lot of mental health issues, and she only thought she was possessed because of her epilepsy. But then you'd have the priests who would claim that she was very much possessed. That's why the meds weren't working. And that they were successful. She just happened to die right when they were successful.
Convenient.
I did do a right. Yeah, good luck proving that one. We cured her. She's free of her possession. She's dead.
I think they also say that, though, because I was going to do a case on an exorcism, but there wasn't enough information. And the priest in that one, it was like a 5 or 6-year-old that died. The priest in that one was like, oh, we cured her, but she died. At least she went to heaven. I feel like that's just their scapegoat of now her body is completely relaxed. She can go to heaven because she's no longer possessed.
Yeah.
Which is stupid.
The defense would submit the recordings from the exorcism in order to justify their actions of like, if you listen to this shit, you can understand why we continued about what we did. Now, I did send you over some pictures if you take a gander at those. There's some of just Annelise before she started to decline, and then during her execution.
She was executed,
well,
yeah.
Pretty much was. Yeah, but during her exorcism, I don't understand how her mother didn't walk in and see her and then think that this is getting better.
The hell happened to her teeth?
So with the malnutrition, she basically, when I say she was deteriorating, I was horrified when I saw those pictures. It's just like, and the fact that she was alive during, she looks absolutely horrific towards the end, which is why I also sent you pictures of what she looked like prior to.
She has 2 black eyes.
Again, she was basically tortured for 10 months. It It was real sad to see because she does not look like the same person.
Poor girl.
And that's why I say I don't know how multiple people, saw her look like this. And that's why I say, at what point do you throw in the towel that, yeah, this isn't working? We need, like, how far were they going to go? And I guess we know until she died. But, like, the fact that she was whittling away to nothingness, she had broken knees that were untreated, like, all of these things, it's just disgusting. Now, the two priests were found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence and were sentenced to 6 months in jail.
That's it?
It was later suspended and they got 3 years of probation. Now, Annelise's parents were exempt from any punishment as they had suffered enough, which turns out to be an actual criteria for German sentencing.
I'm sorry. You want to run that by me again? You help hold your child down and their death is ruled enough punishment? What?
Yep. So I guess submitting all of the prior things of, they posed a pretty good case of they were taking her to the doctor, the things that they were trying, they were only listening to the priest who said that she wasn't, they were just following everything they were told, whether it was the doctors or their priest. So that's why I said this case was real interesting to read.
And they were religious to start with. I think if they were able to show that they were also a very religious family before the exorcisms, they truly believed what they were doing was to help her. It's very sad.
Right. I felt bad for them before the exorcisms that they were trying to care for their adult daughter, who clearly is a very mentally ill person.
Why wasn't she just put in a psych ward?
Probably, I don't know.
Not to say that people with mental disorders should just be dumped in a psych ward, but I feel like she'd at least be alive and she'd have round-the-clock care to help relieve that stress on her family and possibly get a better diagnosis and better combination of medications.
So I feel like it goes into the where we've seen where people are like, you're sick, but you're not sick enough to be here for life. I feel like if during the exorcism when she was real bad, like broke her knees and stuff, I feel like they probably could have gotten her committed somewhere.
Yeah.
But I feel like as a parent, they were probably also hoping that they would cure her and then get their daughter back. So I feel like that's why they were going that route. It's just super sad, but I thought that was an interesting criteria for you've suffered enough.
Almost a quarter of her life was nothing but suffering.
Right. Which is why I was just like, I feel so bad for her. And again, when you see those pictures, she was a shell of a human being and they're hard to look at. Annelise would become an icon for some Catholics. Some people will travel great distances to her grave. Now, her visitors will write notes with requests and thank yous for her help, for atoning for the wayward priests and sinful youth. They'll sing, they'll pray, and then head out. Now, the number of exorcisms approved in Germany after this would decrease even though Pope Benedict XVI would support the wider use of them. Annelise's parents would also, their stance on it was that they really thought they did the right thing because they saw the sign of Christ on her hands, which is basically they thought she was going through stigmata and they still believed she was possessed and they were doing the right thing. And I don't feel like they feel responsible for her death. Now, in June 2013, Annelise's home would burn down, or her childhood home. Police believed it to be arson, but some locals would think it was because of all the exorcisms. And I was like, I'm pretty sure somebody just burnt that shit down.
Because of all the exorcisms.
Yeah. Now, no matter which way you slice it, her story is one of a poor young lady suffering and deteriorating until her death. But it's just real sad.
That's a horrible story.
I also feel like the amount of times people will jump to anything other than a mental health issue is real sad to me. And you have people standing by watching. I'm all for trying alternatives because just because it's not something that's been tried doesn't mean it won't work. That's how we discover things.
Right.
However, if you take somebody and compare the picture of before and the during is starting to look like a Holocaust picture, I feel like you need to stop. We need to try something else. She needs to actually have medical attention. And again, you know how I do like alternatives to.
They were starving her to death. because the math in itself does not make sense. If she went from looking like the normal pictures you sent to her deterioration,
A skeleton?
67 exorcisms with 2 a week, that's just a little over a month. And let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it was closer to 2 months. They had to starve her on a very, very serious starvation level to make her wither away that much. Like she's she's not even half of a human being.
Well, and I feel like if she's doing, like, during those exorcisms, I imagine it's some sort of a battle that she ends up, like, bruised and battered looking as much as she does.
She has 2 black eyes.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But I feel like because that's got to be so exhausting that when they're done, she has got to be passed the fuck out. So, yeah, how do you feed somebody who's like just knocked out? And the combination of medications, I've got to say, she had to been medicated to, like, I hope that she like was just conked out.
Well, and then the other side of that is if they're prescribing her medications based off of her weight and she's withering
Ugh.
away, you want to talk about being overdosed.
Well, it was a real sad story, and I thought it was interesting. And I'd never heard that there were any exorcism movies that were based on anything that was an actual thing.
I did know that that Emily Rose one was based loosely on true events because it says that.
Eh, well, I didn't. Again, I don't watch exorcism movies. I think I watched the first, like, well, I don't know the first, but The Exorcist. I
Yeah.
know I watched that. It wasn't scary to me, but apparently to anyone who is super religious and believes in all the things, and I think it's just easier for me to pretend like that can't happen.
So you like to live in denial.
However you want to slice it. So it's not scary to me like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is scary to me because and things that are likely to happen, that's just the way my brain rations
Right.
my spread of fear.
For me, the exorcism movies are scary in the sense that people used to do that to other people. That is what's horrifying.
Apparently they still can.
I mean, seriously, if you watch the movies like that and think of it like, okay, so this is based off of stuff that they used to do to people that were really just suffering from some sort of mental illness, it's heartbreaking to see the torture that these people go through.
Oh, and I forgot to mention to you that the bishop that had approved the exorcisms, he did during the trial say that at no time did anyone make him aware of Annelise's medical condition. Otherwise, he would not have approved it. So that was the other side to that one. Because one of those, yeah, she suffered, or like she's being treated for all sorts of mental issues.
Then the priest that chose to withhold that information should have been held accountable.
I just thought it was pretty crazy that instead of going to jail, they'd end up on probation.
Yeah. And they withheld information that they were probably aware would have made it to where the exorcism would have been denied. That makes them even more liable in my book.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting because the time period that it happened, I feel like there was enough of the belief of the exorcism. And I think between listening to the audio and all the things is why they were able to get by with pretty much a slap on the wrist.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
That poor girl. At least she's not suffering anymore. It's sad that
Yeah.
her last days on this earth were
Excruciating.
and at the hands of her family.
The only thing that I found comforting in the very least, and I do mean like a drop in the bucket very least, is that she wanted that exorcism as well. I don't know at what point if she was just like
Yeah, forget
no longer
this.
wanting to participate, but
at that point,
I
it's her
feel
demons inside her saying to stop.
right.
Yeah,
But I also feel like if during her execution she's talking about like
her
in some
execution.
sort of a moment. Did I say it again?
Yeah.
It's her execution. That's all it was. A very long, drawn out execution. But I feel like when she was talking about atoning for sins of everybody else, that I feel like she was still buying into her being possessed and this needing to happen. And she was okay with doing all of that. At least if she was that plumb crazy, she felt like what she was doing was. Ugh. It just I think it's absolutely the whole thing sounds made up, really.
Yeah.
But when I saw the pictures, I was like, how the fuck do you continue to do that to somebody that you love? And I don't feel like I could do that.
No.
No matter how much is like you look like shit. Your face is rotted in. Your teeth look like they're gonna fall out.
You got 2 black eyes. You got broken knees. You're withering away to being nothing but bone. Yeah.
Right.
Let's do this some more.
Well, and I feel like as a parent, you're there to protect them. I mean, adult or not, that at what point do you go, yeah, appreciate that you're willing to continue. However, I'm going to say from the outside looking in, I think we need to go to the doctor again.
Yeah, because at least the doctors, she wasn't withering away to nothing.
No, she was just wet in the bed.
They should have sought a different doctor.
Yeah. But that's also, again, the time period. So you got the people who believe that she was possessed, and then not enough known about medical conditions and not enough known about meds and all the things. So it really sucks for her.
It's really sad.
And I'm not to say that there aren't people even now that they don't have anything that's working for them, because that's also a possibility too. So it's even possible she could be alive today and have the same situation of, if the meds aren't working, what are your options? Just basically to cook your brain until you are this wild, crazy, feral person. Apparently that people don't feed. They should have given her a dead bird. She was willing to eat that.
Or some pee.
But got to draw a line somewhere. I'm not giving somebody a glass of pee.
Hey, have you ever heard of the lady that drank her own pee? She bathes in it, brushes her teeth in it. I was just sitting there like,
So there's actually a few, well, I don't know the number of how many people drink their pee, but I have heard, because I want to say Jessica Simpson delves in that.
What?
Yeah. That, dude, I know I read an article or something, because she caught a whole lot of shit for that. But there's plenty of people out there, maybe not plenty, I can't throw out statistics that I don't actually know, but there are people that will drink their pee or wash in their pee or do whatever.
No, ma'am.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
She got a rash of shit for peeing in her grass.
No.
She didn't pee. She didn't drink pee.
Yeah.
No.
Or washed her face in pee. No, that's a 2023. I'm talking like a 2000, like when she married that feller from 98 Degrees. Although apparently the thing you're talking about is her sharing a picture of her peeing in the grass.
Which I don't know why you would do that.
I'm
going to go with no.
I'm going to go with yes. I just can't find the article. So believe it or don't believe it, but even if you don't want to believe Jessica Simpson did it, there is such thing as urine therapy for cosmetic purposes, and that's what she did in the 2000-somethings. And even if you don't want to believe that, it's an actual thing. So put anybody's name to it. There are people who will use urine as a beauty treatment or a therapy.
It's disgusting.
Ew. It says urine therapy has been used as ear or eye drops.
Mm-hmm.
That's disgusting. And used for wound cleansing. Hey, you know what? Instead of step 1, lick the wound, step 1, pee in the wound.
That's disgusting.
Well, that's all I got on that anyway. But I don't know how we got off onto that. But she could have been the first one to discover urine therapy. Not something I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try a lot of things, that not being one. I consider poop and pee as exactly what it is, and their waste's not going to be something I upcycle.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Go wash your ass.
Drink your pee.
Fuck you. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind-fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.